Okay, let's go through the ins and outs of how to actually navigate this paper. I'm going to be very simplistic in it because the instructions are pretty much represented here and in the video that's already existing online. You're going to research and identify 3 or 4 major influences. You're looking at things like culture, politics, mental health, different contributing factors externally that may have influenced the author and the creation of their work. So let's say, for instance, we're looking at a piece like Illustrated Man, all these dire predictions of the future where technology dooms us all. You might look at the culture when Bradbury's writing and see how that culture viewed technology, how they viewed the potential for destruction, how they viewed the world around them. That information that you would find using websites other than things like Wikipedia or Schmoop, I want you to actually go use reputable websites where they really are focused on the time period of the author. You go find that information there, and then you can start trying to tie it directly into the text itself. That's the specific quotes. So let's say you think that perhaps the author is influenced by political strife and the presence of the Cold War and the fear that they're going to be vaporized at any moment by advancing technologies that are scary and dangerous. Well, that perspective that you would have gathered from research would be brought in to have a conversation about examples of that exact issue being represented within text. You go, okay, here's an example of this in the text. Here's the context historically of how this may have played out. Then, along with doing the paper structure, putting together introductory paragraph, and then having the sections for the essay. You also have to properly document your sources. You have to utilize quotation marks. You have to have a works cited page. And the sources it lists 1 primary and 3 secondary sources. The primary is going to be the book itself. So say, for instance, Bradbury would be The Illustrated Man. For Aldous Huxley, it might be Brave New World. The secondary sources would be the websites that you find out in public that give you added information about the background of the author, the society they grew up in, how that influenced them as writers. Now, I'm going to kind of show you a couple things for setting up the paper, because we're going to be using MLA format. So MLA format has a couple of specifics to it. First, it's going to be Times New Roman, 12-point font. The layout, we got to go to, because we got to turn this to 0. We're going to make certain it's 1 inch all the way around. It is. And then we're going to double space it. Then you're going to put your name, class, and period. Then my name, the date. Centered will be the title. You create that. Back to less justified. And indent 0.5 inches. So hit the tab key, and then we begin typing. And that'll just lead towards my thesis statement. As far as organizing the paper, there are a couple ways to do it. You could use subheadings, and I'm perfectly fine with this. Or subheading 1 might be, so I'd spend several paragraphs just establishing the time period and what I've researched and found about it. Then the influence of the 1960s of these things that I pointed out in the above paragraphs on the book, and then I'd go through and do my paragraphs where I attach to the examples and all within the text and how it's representative of that time period playing out. I think this is probably the easiest way to be able to organize this. I mean, certainly you could try and just point out the historical context at the same time as you're quoting from the text, but I think that would complicate things. So use the subheading components, pair it up like this, and then that'd be a great way to write the paragraphs, because you'd have about 2 or 3 that are here, and then 4 or 5 or so from here, and that would take care of the entire thing. The last thing I want to point out is page numbers. So if you want to insert page numbers, it's just insert, takes a second, top of the page, plain number 3. This is the important one. Click different first page. Change your font to match. And then your last name. I'll type your last name in there, and then you're good to go. And you'll note no page number on page 1. It's kind of how you set this thing up. That's how I'd write this thing. There's your 2 cents in 6 minutes or less. Or more. Thanks.